I just had a quick question. So when you look at the schedule this year, Ohio State has 8 home games, and they play mostly cupcakes. Alabama's got to go at Oklahoma, LSU, Tennessee, Wisconsin. Florida has a horrible schedule, obviously. And we have to go at Michigan. We have to play LSU, of course. We're playing Penn State. So the parity in the schedules there's such disparity in the schedules that you really can't base playoff selections on the team's records. So until that's fixed, I kind of feel like a 9-3 USC team could be as good as, if not ranked higher, than an 11-2 team that has a weak schedule. So how would you guys factor in the disparity in schedule strength when considering what record USC needs to make the playoffs?
Well, I'll just say it. I hope that the committee is factoring both the seeding, right? So there's going to be. I'm not sure that USC. Let's just assume. Okay, let's just play this game. It's a pretty big schedule. USC has not been building this roster like some other programs. They did not have the offseason like Oregon did and Ohio State did. So let's just step back a little bit and say USC is vying for one of the at-large positions. Let's go there. Let's say that SC does not win. This is our hypothetical, right? Does USC get in a 9-3 record, as you said? Assuming that 2 of those losses, maybe both of them are lost to ranked LSU and ranked Notre Dame. USC might find itself somewhere near the top of the Big Ten or any combination thereof. And it's going to be interesting to see because we've heard for a long time about schedule and strength of schedule and how important that is. But Matt, this is when we're going to see if this committee does value that for those at-large positions.
Yeah, well, so Adam, I think the biggest thing to bring up here, it's not so much that Ohio State plays 8 home games because the power schools they stack up lots of those home cupcake games to create an imbalance between home and road games. Like you very rarely see the Ohio States, Alabamas, Michigans, Oklahomas of the world playing 6-6. It's usually 7-5. This year it's 8-4 for Ohio State, home versus away. The really big issue that you indirectly bring up, Adam, by talking about schedule disparity, is just that the SEC is staying at 8, and a lot of us, myself included, thought that when the SEC moved to 16 teams with Texas and Oklahoma, that they're gonna have to get off that dime. They're gonna have to go to 9, right? ESPN, Disney, they're gonna want that extra inventory. No way they don't get 9. No, the SEC stood pat at 8 so that Alabama and Georgia can play the Citadel, in the middle of November before their rivalry game, as well as an FCS cupcake, in early September as well. They got 2 cupcakes, if not 3, and of course, no one ever punishes them for it. And that's the other piece of this puzzle. That if playing the Citadel in November punished you in end of the season rankings, they wouldn't do it, but they do it because they know they're always going to get away with it. So to me, the 9 versus 8 disparity between the Big Ten and the SEC, that is the biggest problem. That they really both need to be at the same number. Big Ten really ought to consider going down to 8 if the SEC is not going to move. If ESPN and Disney can't extract that 9th game in future seasons from the SEC, it's interesting. I have some freelance writing gigs. I've been looking at these SEC teams' schedules. Like Ole Miss doesn't have to play Alabama, and other SEC contenders. They get to duck either Bama or Georgia. In some cases, both. Texas A&M has a really nice schedule as well. It doesn't have to deal with some of the teams it's had to play in recent years, and that you get that with an 8-game schedule. With 9. Some of these SEC teams, they would have to play a tougher schedule, but right now they don't. Several SEC teams are playoff contenders, Ole Miss, Missouri being 2 really good examples, because they get all sorts of schedule breaks. And USC is obviously since USC is in the Big Ten, doesn't get that same benefit of the doubt. So that's the thing. That's the big national issue, that if we had a grown-up, if we had an adult in the room governing these things, someone would say, SEC, Big Ten, you have to be playing the same amount of games. So whether it's the SEC moving up to 9 or the Big Ten going down to 8, we would have leadership in the sport to create a streamlined, regulated standard. So like USC, if we played 8, USC before playing, let's say Notre Dame at the end of the season, USC could play San Jose State. Not an FCS team. USC would never do that. USC never has done that, but you could play like a breather game against a lower tier FBS school to get that kind of advantage that Alabama and Georgia have had for decades. But no, we don't have any adults in the room in college football, Adam.
And the issue is also it does get easier, Adam, next year because you have Ole Miss on the schedule. So Ole Miss is ducking some non-conference this year, Matt, but USC has Ole Miss on the non-con next year. That's going to be a big matchup. And it's not even, it's the 8 games, but to the 9 games. But it's like Matt was talking about. If you have that rent-a win that you can bring in, have all your starters out early, you let them heal up and you keep them from getting hurt. USC bangs itself up this year, being in the Big Ten. And I'll tell you, where do you think LSU and Notre Dame this year would rank if they were in our conference schedule? We're playing 2 teams that are better than the majority of our conference. So that's the situation you're going to have. Is USC is like almost inflicting, self-inflicting wounds because we're thin at defensive line and interior for sure. And now we're going to play a 9-game gauntlet in the Big Ten. As on top of that, then we're going to take on LSU and Notre Dame. That, go ahead and try to find me a team that plays 11 tougher teams than USC's playing this year. There's going to be a couple, but not many.
Well, I completely agree with you. And when I look at, for example, the NFL or Major League Baseball or even college baseball, there's parity in the schedules so that you can have faith that the rankings reflect the team's records. But when you have USC playing this schedule, and honestly, some of the SEC teams have murderous schedules, like Florida, for example, and Alabama too. So how can you say that a team with a weaker schedule, like Ohio State, would have that same record if they had USC's schedule or Georgia's schedule or Alabama's schedule? You can't. So that invites all this subjectivity into the playoff rankings, which I think is really a shame because you really can't rely upon the record to determine quality of the teams. And I think that's got to be fixed before we can truly have a legitimate playoff. But thanks for listening to my points, guys. And great show as always. And talk to you soon.
Awesome, Adam. Haven't heard from you in a while. Appreciate you calling in. Yeah, great thoughts from Adam as always. Matt, it does beg the question on what we're doing schedule-wise. I don't know. I really don't know how long these games were on the schedule before we knew we were entering the Big Ten. So, that goes a long way with it.